15 minutes there to take a look back at our intersessional work, hopefully being able to identify our co-facilitators for each of the policy networks and also the MAG working group that we agreed to reconstitute, which is the MAG working group on strategy. All right. So without further ado, maybe we should put that session slide back so we are reminded visually about what we're talking about. I do remember there were 2 hands before the lunch break, one of which was in the room. I did see a flag from Afrello. I have not forgotten, so absolutely be happy to go to you first. And there was also an online hand. I'm just double checking to see if the community member is still here. I believe the community member is still here. So if you still would like to speak, please do raise your hand in the Zoom room. And while I wait for our secretariat to put the slide back on and giving our Afrello representation in the room a little bit of time to think about if you would still like to make, yeah, so please, floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Chair. My name is Cliff for the record, and I want to put emphasis on what one of the previous speakers talked about before we went for the break, and that's about the involvement of journalists in the process. And I feel like one of the most immediate ways to do that is to have them as rapporteurs, because based on their skill, they're able to articulate the outcomes, but then also learn from the process. And then also, I'm inclined to believe that the end justifies the means, and the forum is the means to an end, and that end is to achieve the objectives of the theme that is laid out. But then also just to go back to the report by the EGM in section 8 that talks about capacity building. It mentions item number 2 was about schools of internet governance, and item number 3 was about engaging journalists. I feel like it's also important for consideration for them before and after, because at the end of the day, I ask myself, after the forum, what next? And what next is often defined with how the outputs and outcomes are framed. And there are different stakeholders, and they all interpret the same issue differently. A policy person would interpret the same content differently from a technical person. So it's important for us to put some sort of frameworks on how the outcomes are going to be digested, to be presented to the policymakers, how they're going to be digested, to be presented to the technical people, and then also to the general public who do not understand what the word internet means, and yet they use it every single day. That's all I have to submit, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Cliff. Thank you for, I guess, like speaking with your capacity as Afrello representation here. The 2 recommendations that you spoke to from the EGM report, I actually posted in the Zoom chat just for our refreshing our memory on this, on capacity development. I find it very, it's very innovative that you think that that you suggested that we used the journalists or the media to act as rapporteurs for the sessions. I think that is quite interesting. I think for us to look at the general messaging that comes out of IGF, it is quite a new suggestion. I think rapporteurs in the past, and I'm looking over to our secretariat team, has always been kind of a voluntary effort from within the IGF community. I see a pro and a con about that. The pro, of course, is the IGF community understands very well what the different sessions are focused on and can represent that in a way. But your suggestion also brings across a different perspective because media is looking from the outside in. And sometimes when we are so entrenched in the IGF community, and sometimes it becomes a little bit of a bubble, we actually need to have that perspective, the half step back to understand, hey, how is the rest of the world looking at this? How will we best communicate these good outputs and messages towards, where we need the intended audience to receive? So I think we can definitely take a look at how we can leverage the journalists and media in a really good way that helps us bring across this message, whether that is a rapporteur role or not. I think that's a good suggestion, but finding the best way to be able to tell our story. I think I don't remember if it's a MAG member or others who've mentioned how we tell our story, how we frame our narrative is very important, especially with the messaging we're trying to bring and to whom we're trying to bring it. So I think that's a very good suggestion there. And I'd also like to bring to everyone's attention the two recommendations you brought out too. For number 2, it's not just the schools on internet governance. There's also a lot of the partnerships and organizations and initiatives, including the regional internet registries, which I believe actually Afrinic is having their board meeting right now. So unfortunately, the communities can't, meet and socialize because we're having the same meeting at the same, well, we're having meetings at the same time, but certainly they care a lot about internet governance and there's a lot of good learnings to be had, cross-pollination and that. And of course, ICANN and ISOC too, and we have representation on the MAG from these communities, and I'm sure a lot of us too participate in these communities. So I think it's not only kind of leveraging that expertise, we need to lean on ourselves, just like you from Afralo, from the ICANN community, giving us this good feedback when we're thinking about it in the IGF terms. I think that is it that I wanted to pick up on this. And thank you again. I see now the 2 hands, and thank you, community member, who before lunch put your hand back up. So now the floor is yours. Mark Gobi, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Mokoli Kudu, speaking on behalf of ANK Organization, a youth-led nonprofit in Kenya. So we welcome the selection of AI governance as the youth track theme for IGF 2026. We would encourage the youth track to ensure that AI governance discussions not only address questions of regulation and safety alone, but go beyond to youth participation in AI policymaking, equitable access to AI opportunities, and the governance challenges facing the underrepresented regions, particularly the Global South. So with that, we recommend at least one youth track workshop focusing on meaningful youth engagement in AI governance processes, examining how young people can participate not only as beneficiaries of policy, but also as co-creators of governance frameworks at local, national, and regional, even global levels. We also support the recommendation made earlier by the floor to include the youth in other tracks. And finally, we recommend that the youth track outputs include actionable policy recommendation and pathways for youth engagement that can feed into broader IGF and WSIS processes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mokbovi, for your very important intervention and points. I already see that we have our focal point on the IGF Secretariat, Herman, who's still online, and I'm sure he's taking notes of all of these suggestions. I don't want to put Herman on the spot, but if you can come in after Octavia, just to explain one more time, I guess the content of what the Youth Network is proposing for the regional meetings, and if there's already a decision on what the topic and theme would be at the global summit. So while I give Herman a little time to react to that, I will now go to Octavia. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Octavia Schint, MAG member, Civil Society. I wanted to come back to some of the conversation points that we had before the lunch break. I hope everyone had a good lunch. And in the interest of engagement and breaking silos and the spirit of that exact conversation, I think several colleagues made very good comments in that discussion. And I wanted to open up or put forth a suggestion to the MAG that we perhaps come together and pull together the main discussion points that we've had before lunch and now on the architecture of the program sessions, and give that to the working group on strategy to have a look at either today or tomorrow, if possible, or with a very tight time frame, that would allow us to sort of condense some of the points that have come up and come with a suggestion to what the architecture could look like, and particularly with the set of interconnected sessions like the tracks, engagements, and main sessions. Because some of the points that I did hear related to having perhaps fewer. I heard that. I think Chengetai probably summarized it better than I did just before we went to break. But fewer, more engagement in them and connecting them better to sort of this multi-stakeholder process that we're a part of. So I wanted to put that up and suggest the working group on strategy as a place to do that, but very happy to have a conversation around that. And wanted to second, Chair, your points on how the interesting suggestions around media, having worked with that as well for many years. It's you know, as the Fourth Estate does have a very particular role to play, that could be something that I would at least love to have time to discuss further at some point. Thank you. And thank you for giving me the floor.
Thank you very much, Octavia, for the really considered input. Definitely, we will lean on you for expertise, especially since you have mentioned that you've had experience working with media and the journalists as well. So let's find the best conduit and the best way and best format for them to be able to tell our story in the way that we would like our story to be heard by the different people. Coming back to your previous request on looking at the program session architecture in a more holistic and strategic way, I will suggest actually that it might be on the MAG. It's our responsibility collectively as MAG to be able to have this conversation and give this input. And of course, we lean very heavily on our IGF Secretariat team to be able to action these things and be able to help us sequence and organize the way that the program is put together, because ultimately that is the responsibility of the IGF Secretariat. So again, for working group strategy, I think there's quite a few items that we have already identified this morning, yesterday, and possibly we will talk about it some more in the next, well, I've carved out 15 minutes from this agenda item to take a look at, but if we need to, I'm happy to carve out a little bit more. I hope that's amenable to your suggestion, or just a small adjustment, Octavia?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think for me it would be important at least that the working group on strategy have their input as well, with the amazing work that they've done in the past years as well, and with their role. But absolutely, thank you for emphasizing that it is, of course, the MAG's role to do this and to make these new changes. If we so, I think we need to be brave and bold now with the architecture, given our new permanent mandate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Octavia. I see Herman has now put on his video, so I'll assume you are now ready to give a little bit more context. I see a nod, so the floor is now yours, Herman.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and also thank you to Mokobi for the input. And I think it echoes a lot from what we heard last year, but also this year from the IGF youth community, that they want to be more involved in the governance process and policy making process of digital issues. For the youth track, all of the content and participants in the youth track are developed by the youth community themselves. And all our meetings and discussions are open to all to join. I'll send a link where you can register for the or subscribe to the mailing list, where you will get all information on upcoming meetings and the work progress. And I think we also started a bit this year to kind of implementing this feedback. As for the first workshop that we had during Eurodig, we're slowly trying to engage more with parliamentarians, so that's actual policymakers, and put them into the room together with youth participants for them to, voice their concerns on specific digital policy issues that the parliamentarians then can bring back to their parliaments and brief their colleagues on. And this is something we want to do also throughout the year with other parliamentarians in other regions as well. So hopefully that answers some of the questions.
Thank you very much, Herman, for that context. I'm just hoping that Mokobi was okay with this response, or if he had any follow-up questions. I also noticed that Herman very kindly put in the mailing list for the youth IGF coordinators. Please do, if you're not already connected with that, do sign up. They do a really good job in curating a lot of it. I'm very impressed with all the work that they've been doing so far, and I will try my best to be able to join a lot of their calls as well, because I learn a lot from what they discuss. I also noticed in the chat that Yao has very kindly put down the link to the Youth Track 2026, so there's more information there should you need it. So I think with that gives you a lot of conduits to contribute to the work. So I really appreciate that. Okay, I think we have an empty queue. Maybe it's a little bit of we need to wake up after our lunch break, or we've exhausted this particular agenda item. That's also okay. Maybe we need a little bit more time to think through. I think we had very good discussion earlier about it. I think we haven't really come to any specific conclusion, but we certainly have given the IGF Secretariat team a lot of good input that they will take away when they're looking at what the building blocks might look like. We've heard that it's actually always a perennial question of how each MAG looks at streamlining the meeting agenda, because it's not a matter of sheer numbers. It could be really how coherent the whole agenda looks like for those who are coming there to experience it. For me, I guess I'm going to share my personal opinion here. For me, it's very much a user experience. When you go to a certain conference, you're able to navigate to the items, the sessions, the themes, the issues that you care most about. And if we're able to do that, to me, that equals success. Of course, success looks like different things to many people, and that's why we need all of your input and opinions. And now I see a queue forming. So Olaf, please go ahead.
Yeah, just a question about follow-up. You just said the Secretariat has a bunch of things to work with. Will a concrete proposal come back to the MAG? Or how are we, what's basically the next step? And by the way, I agree with the navigation and the logo.
As we are having a little bit of discussion here, I'll go to Dr. Rajendra first, and then we'll come back to the Secretariat. So Rajendra, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think when it comes to sessions or building blocks or the broader ecosystem that goes above the building blocks, I think it's more than that. When I go to IGF every year, I know when I'm spending a week there, I'm going to get updated on every single aspect of what's going on with regards to internet and internet-related technologies. So that's what is the objective when people come to IGF. And it's not specific to a geography or a particular domain. It probably refreshes you on what's going on with the people who matter. So for me, it is that. And that's where I think accordingly, sessions should be there. If it means more numbers, it should be more. If it means broader horizontal, it should be that. So I like the wordings you put of building blocks, but I think it's the broader ecosystem that matters to me. So while you have technologies, you have platforms, you have compute power, but then you have other ecosystems. Are there regulations in place? Are there policies in place? Is there funding in place? Is there capacity in place? So for me, the broader ecosystem very much, kind of converges into the agenda. That's how I look at it.
Thank you very much, Virginia. Thank you for the reminder again. It's a whole package we're looking at, and we're currently focusing on this building blocks thing, but we, of course, at the back of our mind, always needs to remember, the bigger picture and the bigger, wider ecosystem.
For Olaf's question, Eleonora will answer it.
With pleasure. No, it's not. It's not a hot potato. I think it was actually a very good question, because we've had a very lively, productive discussion here, and people want to know. So what happens next? So first of all, we're going to be recording the feedback that we had here, obviously in our summary that will get published in short order. So it'll be very clear what the feedback was from the MAG, and for us, putting together the program is, a process of 2 or 3 months in which we need certain inputs that we don't have yet, like the space that we're going to be using, right? So it's a continuous process. So I don't think we can come back with a concrete plan immediately, but what we will do is use the MAG's feedback here as continuous guidance as we're putting the various components together. And of course, we will be meeting with the MAG constantly and updating on progress.
Yeah. And also, we don't know, the workshops, what topics, etc. And that also informs how we're going to structure the program. So as we go along, we'll inform you as the pieces drop in, and then it's a continuous conversation. Yeah.
Thank you, Eleonora and Changatai, for answering this. Olaf, checking with you to see if you're okay. Nods. Okay, that's very good. Back to the queue. Octavia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Octavia, Civil Society MAG member. I just wanted to second the user experience aspect, Chair, that you said, because my previous point, I think, comes exactly to that with the big policy issues that both WIS's process, something that we discussed before lunch, and the role that the MAG and the IGF plays in that. I think to render the results that we need on these huge policy issues, we need more engagement. And I think the way in which we do the architecture is really important to rendering and getting us the results that we need. And some of the sort of high level tracks or engagements could use better connection. I think as some colleagues have also and that to me boils down to the user experience of the individuals that come to the MAG, all of them, all of us, and how much access to and or interactivity we have in those tracks, engagements and main sessions. So that's a part of, I think, that big puzzle that Eleonora was also alluding to, that sort of somehow miraculously, with a lot of work, comes together every year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Octavia. Indeed, yes, that is always the question that's faced by the MAG, and I think it's something that we absolutely need to understand. We need to have an answer for, at least for this year. We can have the answer that's right for this year. The answer could be different for next year as well, but looking exactly, highlighting what you mentioned, the big policy pieces of WSIS Plus 20 review being over, the permanent mandate, how we're going to implement pieces of the commitments when we came looking at, GDC and the global dialogue on AI, all of those things that intersect with the lens of IGF. That's where we really need to kind of pinpoint. Again, devil's always in the details, but I think we've had really good input on the goals we want to achieve here. I'm sure, Secretariat again is taking in all of this input, and we'll be able to see this hopefully in the next time we revisit this conversation. Okay. We have absolutely exhausted the queue on this particular agenda item. Oh, not yet. And now we have Jordan. Please go ahead.
Tell me if this is the wrong time to ask this, but in terms of the dependency in the program on the number of rooms and so on available, does the Secretariat have any information about the number of rooms that would be available if we were here?
Yes, I think it's the usual complement, 10 workshop rooms and 1 plenary room. I would hesitate to go above that because one of the problems that we're having with finding hosts is that we're just too big for some places. So I think that should be the cap. If you could reduce it, that would be all better because it's no.
Is that a good piece of information for Mag to kind of take away and chew on? Okay. So with that, I'm not going to belabor the point anymore. I think we have exhausted the discussion on this particular agenda item so far. I did say that I'd like to carve out some time with that a little bit of homework item or a little bit of thinking over the lunch break that I'd like us to revisit. Now we go back to our policy network and our intersessional work. Just as a reminder, as our secretariat brings back up the screen for that, the 4 policy networks that we have agreed to, including those who have put their hand up indicating interest to participate, are as follows. And maybe we can also post a link for the full action item report in the Zoom chat, just for those who don't have this on their screen as well. So the first one is the policy network on AI. We have had MAG members, community members, maybe those are just MAG members. I think those are just MAG members who've offered that they have indicated interest to participate in, but we really do hope for volunteers to step forward to be a co-facilitator. We were hoping to get at least 2 because that's usually if we have one who's not available to lead that, at least we'll have another person who will be able to continue that work or lead that particular call if needed. Again, a reminder for us for the policy network, Secretariat will be happy to send out what the next steps would be on looking at a deeper or more fleshed out work plan based on the elements that we received from the community proposal. And of course, they will also send out that notification to the community proposal proponents that they will, of course, be invited to help shape the work as well. So there we have it. We have some names up there. I'll give us all a little bit of time. Don't be shy to put your hand forward. The second one is the policy network on cybersecurity.
Sorry, 2 fingers, Chair, if you could. For those who don't know, which I am one among, is it possible to give the 60-second version about what these co-facilitators would be expected to do or deliver? Just to help get people thinking about whether they're able to do it or not.
Sure. Thank you, Jordan. That's a very good question. I'm going to look over to our Secretariat team to see if there's some description of the high-level obligations of the co-facilitators of this policy networks, or for what has happened in the past, perhaps?
I mean, for the policy network, we do have our consultant that's there. So policy network, so they usually just report back to the MAG on what is happening. And they meet with the Secretariat and the consultant and just discuss on, the path forward, whether we're on the right track, etc. So it's not that high a bar as such. Yeah.
Can we, I'm just going to check to see if okay, there's the hands, and Dr. Chen, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think as we discussed in the morning, it'll be good now onwards to put terms of reference, and the operational way of looking at all this intersessional work, because that gives throughputs. And as I think you have prioritized always that we should be time bound in what we do. So the terms of reference would be good for each of this, so it becomes clearer to people, and the frameworks that we follow and the process they would follow. Like we have a governance for DC, like how do you govern them? So that will be helpful. And on the AI, I said if I'll be happy to co-facilitate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajendra, for a really good suggestion. Do we have a terms of reference specifically for the policy networks? I know we have one for the MAG working group on strategy. There is a terms of reference on that, but I don't think.
Not for the co-facilitation.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe the next order of action item for this MAG is to create that expectation and that document that kind of fleshes out what co-facilitators are going to be doing.
And if it is a case, I can actually work with the members to create that framework, because it has to come from us. So if we keep throwing everything to secretariat, we already have a lean team which is overloaded. So if we can take some of those things and give it to them as base documents, they can then work on it. I'm happy to do that for our frameworks.
Thank you very much, Rajendra. And did I hear that you put your hand up for the policy network on AI? Thank you very much. I'm also checking the chat. I see, thank you for the volunteers coming forward. I see that Octavia has mentioned that they would be happy to volunteer to facilitate the cybersecurity policy network. And I now see a flag up from Audace. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Orders for the record. I just wanted to share a bit on, having been a co-facilitator of the policy network on AI, what the work actually entails in collaboration with Jao and Amrita, which is basically steering the conversation of the community, first of all, because there are a lot of inputs from the community members of these policy networks, including the drafting teams, including the pen holders, that really steer the drafting processes of the report, as well as ensuring that together with the coordinators that the deadline set forward for the summary reports and final reports are met. So it's mostly a work of steering the conversations and working with the coordinators and the drafting teams.
Thank you very much, Audace. Did I hear you putting your hand up for one of the policy networks to help co-facilitate?
Yes, policy network on AI.
Perfect. So we'll capture that as well. Thank you, Audace. I do see a hand up from Marcus, but before I go to Marcus, I just want to read out for the record on the chat in case people are not following. I see that Jordan Carter and Sophia Longway, both of them are happy to help co-facilitate the policy network on open digital infrastructure. So thank you both for volunteering and putting your hand up for that. And now I'll go to Marcus. Please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you. I know you like practical questions. So I did mention before that dynamic coalitions are willing to contribute throughout the ecosystem to activities. My question is if, and to all of these policy networks are dynamic coalitions who do relevant and related work, how should they log into that? Should they just address the co-facilitators, or is it a pull-in, or how do we go about if you want to? I mean, there is expertise in the dynamic coalitions. How do you bring it into this work? Thank you.
You can contact the secretariat, and then we'll just make when we get the consultant, we can just do the planning meeting with you as well, with whomever you have, and then we can discuss that with them. So is that okay?
Okay, so it would be appropriate for us to just relate it to all the DC lists and say who is interested should get in touch with Secretariat. Okay.
Yeah, just get in touch with us.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Marcus, for the question, and also Chengetai for the explanation. And I know, Marcus, you have also supported the work of the BPF cybersecurity for many of the years, especially with the very good work that they've come up with. So our hope, again, is to lean on you for your expertise on this and be very active in the work of the PN, now renamed PN on cybersecurity. Thank you very much on that. I'm double checking to see if we have any more hands up. I'm looking around the room and looking around the Zoom room for volunteers to co-facilitate. But well, let's go to Octavia first. Octavia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I believe Karina Birarda, whom I've also been in best practice forum on cybersecurity with, also put herself forward for co-facilitation. I don't see that in the sheet that's being shared. Okay, perfect. Sorry, that was it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Actually, thank you to Eleonora, who's got quick fingers on this document that's currently being shared on screen. So thank you very much, Karina, for volunteering to help us co-facilitate. I think there's one more that we haven't heard people speak up on yet, and that's the Policy Network on Digital Inclusion. Extremely important work there. Angela, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me better. Just want to check my audio.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I am very excited about the Policy Network on Digital Inclusion and would like to try to help, but please, everyone, bear with me because I'm a newcomer and I'm still learning the ropes. I welcome advice from colleagues who have more experience, but I'm excited to help co-facilitate the Policy Network on Digital Inclusion and invite colleagues to join me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela, especially stepping forward as a first-year MAG member. But you have certainly a lot of expertise on this topic, and I know you can bring that expertise from ICANN's perspective and also the wider community perspective as well. I will now go to the next one on the queue. Rajendra, please go ahead.
Yeah, I always have this bad habit. If people don't chip in, I always chip in. So if people are chipping in for digital inclusion, I would be happy to handhold to pass on to someone who takes as co-facilitator, but I can start with someone to co-facilitate. I know I'm overcommitting, but we can't leave something headless, which is all as important as digital inclusion.
Thank you very much, Rajendra. We really appreciate you overextending yourself. But please, MAG members, please think about it. Let's not overtax and overburden any particular MAG member. We have a lot of work in front of us, and it's good to share the load and share the responsibility. I see a hand up now from Osita. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I am in cybersecurity and I want to volunteer in my capacity, not as a pro, but I would assist in whichever capacity that the team wants me to support.
Thank you very much, Osita. I think there was a question or maybe a comment in the chat that also mentioned the Policy Network co-facilitators. We're drawing on the MAG to lead and shepherd that. But of course, the substantive work really leans and depends on the community, depends on expertise that we find across all of the stakeholder groups and in the wider community as well. So absolutely welcome your interest and your willingness to contribute. So really appreciate you speaking up for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And now I think we can move on to the working groups. If we can scroll down a little bit. I think working group strategy was quite clear in the previous call already. And I just want to reconfirm with our two MAG members who bravely put their hand up before we even had this full discussion. I think it's both Olaf and Peace. I see a hand. I don't want to put you on the spot, but think about, whether or not you're happy to accept. But let's go to Rajendra.
This is one which I had when it was announced in the last, I think, MAG meeting I had accepted, but I think I used the word I chip in. I didn't realize that I should have put co-facilitation. So yeah, I'd be keen to be a part of this facilitation strategy. But I think this is going to be very important. For me, strategy means where we are today, where we are going to be, and how we are going to be getting there. So strategy remains, as you said, building blocks plus ecosystem overall. If we shape it well, we have a good thing ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajendra. I see now a queue. Jordan, please go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. Just a quick one. If our names are not on this list, but we're already a member of the working group, do we need to be on this list again or not? Is this just new people joining? Okay. Great, thanks.
Just for the sake of clarity, because I know there's others who are part of this working group and part of the mailing list, can we have some clarity from the Secretariat whether or not they can just continue and
I mean, yes, of course you can just continue. And to be clear, all of this work is open, so you can join it anytime. There's no official resubscription process.
all right, so that's clear. And a hand from Anya.
I wanted to add just one quick detail. Of course, Meg will determine if relevant. The so far policy network's internal structure was open to everyone, but included a multi-stakeholder working group that was established at the beginning to help us kind of kickstart and set the foundation, basically. So the question now is whether that will continue as a structure, because in case yes, then there are implications for the Secretariat's work. And then the second thing is, maybe I can draw the attention to the comments in the chat. In the past, the communities, I would say, around the policy networks would decide that one of the co-chairs or co-facilitators would be a community member. So is that something that will be part of the TOR for the policy networks that we will be working on? Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. Very good question. And I also am looking at the chat as well, because I see some responses on that. I opened this question for this MAG to consider. I'll kind of mention it probably after we think about this a little bit more. Certainly, well, I'll call them co-facilitators or co-chairs, but the community component is always very important again, because all of this work is open for all who are interested to contribute. In terms of the multi-stakeholder kind of group that kind of helps us kickstart or gives that foundation to each of the policy networks, I see there's benefits to it. And I already see in the chat that I think DCAD was very interested to continue to work on the group for digital inclusion, for example. So there's DCs, there's other intersessional work tracks that would be very interested and actually quite topically relevant for these policy networks. So I think I'm going to open this question for the MAG to consider. I know we have a queue, so I'll go back to the queue, think about this question, and hopefully put your hand up on the queue to answer or ideate on this. So Barak, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to add that I'm interested in the working group on strategy as well.
Thank you very much, Barak. I'm sure our Secretariat team will have captured this as well. Mokhtar.
If and only if there is no one who is volunteering to coordinate the stakeholder coordinators, if there is none, I will be glad to help. Yes.
Stakeholder coordinator?
Yes. I see if there is no one there, because I don't see any. I see many and I see Barak. How many coordinators do you need?
We're not quite there yet, but
okay.
It's okay for you to ask the question. Well, for the coordinators, we're looking at, of course, again, this is a new pilot. It's a new experiment. It's a way for us to organize our work. We have many opportunities, just as we're doing right now in the policy networks, the working groups. We work across all stakeholder groups at every opportunity. But this is one more avenue for a very lightweight, light touch coordination. Should we find it useful for us to even, caucus within our stakeholder group? So again, it's not a siloing. It's just if it's beneficial to our work, beneficial to our coordination, I think this is a very useful idea. So Mokhtar, I think the answer is really, again, it's a very lightweight, informal thing. So really, we're looking not for a humongous group. So hopefully one, maybe two for each of the stakeholder groups would be really good to help really kind of kickstart that ideation process if we think it's useful. And again, it's more of a mutual holding each other accountable mechanism to make sure we get the work done. Hopefully that answers your question. I see now a flag in the room. Peace. It's for the next one. Okay, let's finish the conversation that we were having on the policy networks and working groups first, and then we can move on to that one. Barak, is that a legacy hand or a new one? Sure. I also want to pick up on what I saw in the chat and also articulated by Saba earlier, and I heard some support around the room from other MAG members. I'd like us to revisit a little bit the MAG working group on youth that Saba proposed. And originally on the last call, there was no response, but I heard some response here. So I'd like to clarify whether or not this is something that MAG 2026 would like to reconstitute the MAG working group on youth. And in that case, I mean, obviously the ones who have indicated support, can I assume that you will be happy to take on that co-facilitation role and work closely with Herman and of course the youth network to be able to get to those items that we'd like to take forward? I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you definitely have a chance to take the floor to elaborate a little bit more. Maybe give you a little bit of time to think about it, because right now we have confirmed the policy networks. We have pretty much wrapped up and confirmed for working group on strategy. Bear in mind that we've talked about subgroups or task force that specifically look at those pieces. I think definitely MAG members who have that interest would be leaning on all of you to lead that work. So if this is going to be the only MAG working group, or if we are having two, we'd like some clarity so the Secretariat can also arrange for the necessary logistics, including mailing lists and support. So I'll give you a little bit of time to think about that. Yes, I also see the question from Yao in the chat as well, specifically on this. So while you think about it some more, because we haven't come to any conclusion here about the MAG working group on youth, I'd like to get us to this answer. With that, let's turn over to the coordinators. So if we can just scroll down. We've already had 2 hands up for that many. Thank you very much for putting your hand up to help us coordinate, wrangle the cats for private sector. Thank you also to Barak, who put his hand up very bravely to help us wrangle the technical community. And oh, now I see there's also another person here. Thank you, Peace, for volunteering to help us wrangle and light touch coordinate with civil society. Do we have any others who, okay, please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. I would like to volunteer to coordinate the government, stakeholder group.
Thank you very much, Taiwo. We appreciate that. If we can just, I guess, yeah, record it. Thank you very much. And I see there is now a hand from Nima. Nima, please go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I wanted to also offer support to coordinate or co-coordinate the government stakeholder engagement part. Thank you. Because then we can also try and get in more parliamentarians to participate as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nima. I think Secretariat is recording that as well. Appreciate that. Okay, I've given us a little bit of time to think about the MAG working group on youth. There's the open question here. I hope MAG members who've indicated support or the proposal for that are able to hopefully take the floor. I see a hand from Yao. Yao, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate I don't know if I put it like the needs or is it, I don't know, you all know already how important it is to engage the youth. So I just want to support the proposal to rejuvenate or push forth the working group on youth engagement, because this is very important to support the overall youth engagement in the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yao. And now I see in the chat that Saba has indicated she's happy to continue to co-facilitate the working group on youth. Do appreciate that. I see a hand up from Sonia. Not Sonia. Sophia, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also just endorsing the working group youth. I think that this is really important. The work in the past has been very essential, also with the WIS plus 20 review. And I think that we should continue that also to closely coordinate with the national regional youth initiatives.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think we do have some coordination between the youth network and the NRIs, right? I'm looking at Anya.
Yes, we do have coordination because the entire youth track within the IGF is actually prepared and carried by the youth IGFs, including some designees by the international initiatives that are youth focused.
Thank you very much, Anya. And yeah, that's really good as well. I think a lot of the NRIs too have some sort of youth component, or some of their youth NRIs are quite independent, but some of them do share some dates and some interaction as well, which is really nice. Okay. I think we can wrap on this agenda item early. Thank you so much to all of the MAG members who have bravely and boldly raised their hands to
Please,
volunteer to co-facilitate.
I didn't have the word. I'm a MAG member, Martina. Sorry, I have the Wi-Fi issue. So
Sure, Martina, please go ahead.
sorry, I had a Wi-Fi issue. Sorry, yes, definitely. Sorry, I didn't heard 4 minutes now, but I will be happy as I was written to be part of this AI group. And also in the chat, I put that I will be happy to participate on stakeholder coordinators, please. Please.
Thank you, Martina. I think our secretariat team has recorded your interests as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so I think we can move to our next agenda item 6 minutes early. I like us being early. We're very efficient here. It's the favorite thing of mine, actually. So the next agenda item we will be going to is the 7th one on today's list. This is the government dialogue at IGF 2026. I think I pass the floor now over to Dennis from UNDESA to give a brief introduction.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This is the paragraph 101 of the WSIS plus 20 outcome document, which reads as, we call upon the IGF to enhance its working modalities and to broaden the participation of governments and other stakeholders from developing countries and underrepresented communities by working on establishing and facilitating a dialogue among governments with the participation of all stakeholders. I think the history of this paragraph is useful for our discussion today. During the negotiations, there was a broad recognition that government participation in IGF needs to be strengthened, especially from developing countries. Yes, we do all our outreach. We speak to diplomats, they change, and then the new ones, maybe they are not briefed. So this issue needs to be constantly raised by governments. So in the early discussions, there were some proposals called for a dedicated policy platform or even a high-level intergovernmental track within the IGF. And some other delegations emphasized that the IGF should remain a single, inclusive, multi-stakeholder platform consistent with the Tunis agenda. So the agreed language in paragraph 101 reflects this balance. So it doesn't create a separate body. It doesn't change the IGF's multi-stakeholder character. Instead, it calls on IGF to enhance its working modalities and broaden participation. So I think the question in front of the MAC is how to implement this mandate through adaptation of existing mechanisms that we have. I mean, I think you will discuss in detail, but this could include a more structured government dialogue. Maybe ambassador has some ideas as the host country and also as the co-facilitator of the WSIS Plus 20 review process, where this dialogue came from. So there is I don't want to go to details of the discussion, but this was one of the negotiated paragraphs during the WSIS Plus 20 review. Over to you.
Yeah, I mean, just to add, so what we want to do is just to garner your viewpoints if you have anything to give to us. But for the government dialogue, it will be the government, the host country, the government of Kenya and UNDESA who will take the lead on this and formulate this track, because they'll be doing all the heavy lifting, the invitation of all the ministers or even heads of state, etc. So, but what we're mostly interested in is if you have anything for us to take under consideration. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And as you know, I think this was kind of the most fundamental shift in the history of the IGF process, where you have governments now wanting to engage and have dialogue. I think in this first one, maybe we may not be able to do what we want to do. But I think we could potentially frame how this can be in the future IGFs, because we really have a short time. If you look at how the global dialogue on AI was shaped, it was very much around how can governments leverage existing spaces that they meet normally, right, for these conversations, whether it's the high-level political forum, whether it's ANGA. And so maybe for this one, it would be a little bit innovative, but then we could help the Secretariat and IGF in terms of kind of framing what this can look like in future. So I think for me, that's how we see it from our vantage point. So this one will be very innovative. But the next one will frame it. It will help shape the long-term kind of how we do it.
So this is something that we want people to take notice of, not just, oh, it's just another IGF track, right? Yeah.
So with that context, introduction, and of course, thank you for the words, Chair, for Kenya's support to, of course, take the lead on this. I see now there is a queue that is forming. Martina, is that a legacy hand or is that a new hand?
Sorry, old hand, sorry.
Thank you very much. So I will go to now Rajendra. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ambassador, for this very important panel. I think, as I said, we should understand from IGF what is our primary audience. It is governments. Every government says what has come out. Can we look at it? Is there a precedent? Is there a best practice? What does a multilateral body say? And we are uniquely positioned as being pluralistic in terms of multi-stakeholders, but still a multilateral body. So working with various ministers, when we looked at which delegations, which places we'll go, we always looked at our priorities. So digital economy still remains one of the biggest. How do you enable that? So if, as I said in the morning, parliamentary track becomes a ministerial track where the serving ministries come, and if you make it like prioritize it in terms of probably topics like job creation, skilling, and that will become a draw for them to come to share their innovations. I mean, every government wants to showcase their innovations, and they're doing phenomenally well. I think it'll be good to look at a call talking to ministers saying if they have innovations at scale which they want to share, you can get good participation. And the first one you do well, next one there's a race for who will come in, you will have to filter it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Rajendra. I will now go to Sophia. Sophia, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. I really appreciate the willingness of you and Dessa and also Ambassador to take the lead on this. But I think that it's very important that the MAG still has a formative role within the government dialogue and also in general to implement paragraph 101, because the language refers to the entire forum in the text. And I think that we really have to ensure that the government dialogue remains somehow multi-stakeholder, that it should still be an open space to all stakeholders as the IGF is supposed to be. And maybe also repeating what Barak said earlier, I think the observation is very interesting that increasingly the responsibility seems to shift from ministries for digital and ICT to ministries of foreign affairs, so that we're like having more diplomats talking about digital and internet governance. So maybe we should also take that into account. Thank you.
I just want to clarify that UNDESA is not taking the lead here. I think Shengetai mentioned that in case you need to reach to ministers, our USG can sign an invitation letter, but the program and the substance, UNDESA is not taking the lead. We could, of course, if needed, provide guidance, but it is the MAG's decision.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for clarifying, and also, of course, Sophia for this. I need to wrangle the queue because I see there's a queue in the Zoom room and the queue in the room as well. So this is how the queue will follow. I will first go to Mokhtar, then I will go to Angela, then I'll go to Jordan, then I will go to Peace. After Peace, I will go to Paul Blaker. So first, Mokhtar, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to Co-Chair too. By the way, I forgot this morning to say something very important, that we probably need to express our solidarity for Venezuela and Japan after the earthquakes this morning or yesterday. That's probably something we need to do. Every time I take the floor, it is in my mind and then it disappears, right? But okay, having said that, I think we need to welcome this enhanced kind of government dialogue. It's very important, specifically in the African context. It's extremely important. So, but this session need to be very well designed. It should not be something that is closed door there, apart from the multi-stakeholder model kind of things. It should remain within that context. Meaning, it is very important specifically to have the other stakeholders sitting with the government and discuss the overall matters related to the IG in general, specifically in the African context. Again, I repeat that. I suggest that we learn also from what has been done during the other setups, such as the WSIS plus 20 and what is being done sometimes as a higher level dialogue in ICANN, for instance, and so on, and learn from that how we could set up a very good platform through which the governments could have a dialogue with the other stakeholders. So my conclusion here is government dialogue should be a bridge into the multi-stakeholder conversation, not a room beside it. If it is done well, it's bring African decision makers to the table on equal footing. I hate reading something I wrote. I need talking. I hate reading, but that's fine. That I wanted to say.
I think so. A couple of things, and let's also, I think, be clear why government wanted to be in this. They wanted to be in this precisely because of that IGF never had kind of a space for governments to engage. So governments wants to be here. I think let's have that clear. I think second thing is to understand sometimes governments also need a safe space to have a conversation. So I think it's how we structure the dialogue in a way that there's some parts governments need to talk to governments, then other parts needs to be open for other governments. That's even when we were negotiating this, that was very clear. that some parts will be governments talking to governments, some parts will be governments opening up to the multi-stakeholder ecosystem.
Thank you very much, Mokhtar. Thank you, Co-Chair, for additional context as well. Thank you also, Mokhtar, for bringing up some examples of how certain dialogue or government kind of focused dialogue tracks in multi-stakeholder spaces happen. But again, I think our Co-Chair has mentioned this is an innovation for IGF, so we can be innovative. So I see a one-finger response.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
just I've been in this system was trying to bring the guy. I spent 15 years in the African Union trying to do what is exactly trying to be done there here. And this idea of always trying to be, not to have the government melting with the other stakeholders is, to my own point of view, is not very healthy. The government need to melt with the people, no matter what, with everybody. So yes, they have their specificities in terms of high-level discussion strategies and so, but that can be discussed in the whole setups of the African Union, UN, UNG, etc. But in the context of the IGF, I believe the government should and must melt and discuss and dialogue with the other stakeholders to understand exactly how the governance of the internet will take place. But I don't want to engage in dialogue on that, but I can do it aside. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mokhtar. So this is how the queue will go. I will go next to Angela, then Jordan, then Peace, then I'll go to Paul Blaker, and then I'll take the queue that I see subsequently. So Angela, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Mokhtar's sentiment that the government track or government dialogue should not be a closed door, just government. But I know that was never the intent, but I'm just mindful that it should not be a siloed conversation. On the same hand, I do understand where the ambassador comes from, what he's saying, what his point of view. I do agree that from the government, it is important to create a safe and useful space for them to come and listen to the views of the multi-stakeholders, and so that they will think that IGF is not a threatening place to them, but IGF is a useful place that is worth putting aside resources for them to come. So that's also one of the things that I think is important, is to think about how we plan to promote or engage this government dialogue track. This will not be the case of as long as we build them and then they will come. So we need to engage like-minded partners. So perhaps one of the ideas could be to engage like-minded or supportive governments who are already a regular participant of IGF and get them to engage other governments to come into the discussions, because we all know that governments react differently when they hear from their fellow governments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela.
Yeah, again, and I think for me, and let's not misunderstand what I said. I seem to think that people are misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying governments are going to talk to governments alone. I'm saying there's some parts that governments need to talk to governments. That's a reality, right? Because there's a way and that happens even in the HLPF. It happens at anger. And so the idea, otherwise no one will come. And I can tell you that from scratch. So all I'm saying is that how we design it, it needs to be designed in a way that there's a safe space for governments to talk to themselves. And then the other spaces for governments to engage, not to listen. Again, I'm reframing this. They're not coming to listen to the multi-stakeholder group. They're coming to engage in the multi-stakeholder group. That's how we need to design it, because that's the circle of policy, right? It's what I'm doing now. I'm not listening. We're engaging. And as you know, Kenya, as you said, we've done this, honestly. We run the Open Government Partnership. If you see how we do it, that's how we run it. We've run the Global Partnership on Sustainable Development Data. That's how we done it. Same thing we did for Africa Forward. Many people participated, and there were spaces where government spoke, but there are spaces where we opened it up for everyone. And I think for me, we need to keep that principle in terms of the design of it, that recognizing, especially when you talk about African governments, and this is something that I see myself. Remember, there's also a capacity challenge that lots of you have overcapacity, and I'll be very honest. You have overcapacity in technology. I am a tech envoy, the only one who speaks your language. So think about it. Me throwing you with my government colleagues, you will not have a dialogue. They will just look at you. And so sometimes you need them to retreat so that some of us can prepare them, even in the way that they will engage with you. So if we look at it that way, then I think we can design this for the future. So it's just not this one that we have a short runway, but then we need to design for the long term in terms of how government can off-ramp, on-ramp in terms of how they engage in process like this.
Thank you, Co-Chair, for a very considered response here. I will now continue the queue. Jordan, you have the floor.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, it's an interesting topic, this one. I mistakenly called this the government track once and got several people telling me I had the wrong language. It's a dialogue, not a track, which is good given our earlier discussion this morning. Two thoughts, really. One is that in the medium term, or maybe after this year, as the MAG gets its head around that longer term planning framework, that should be a way that the MAG can share its views to shape all of the parts of the program of the IGF that are currently more led by host country, secretariat, and so on. So government dialogue, the main country sessions, and so on. All of those, the parliamentary dialogue could be shaped in that way. I think for this year, if the co-host, the host country and the secretariat are committed to engaging with the MAG, getting feedback, seeing how the MAG led main sessions develop, how the workshops are selected, and how this can all fit together, that would be good. I'm pleased to hear the points around not wanting to have a sort of just a silo away. There might be one example from the ICANN environment where this problem of getting people up to speed so they're comfortable having a conversation also exists. And one of the ways that's happened there is to have a couple of days of sessions at the start that are framed as capacity building, and then the more formal program. So the dialogue would be open, but there can be some less open or more targeted capacity building where everyone's words have less weight, there's less stake put on them, and it just makes it a more free and easy conversation for people to be learning. So
That's exactly what we're saying. Because we have this all the time. And I think it's important so that you have, of course, folks comfortable in engaging and just fluent. The fluency, this language, believe me, is not new. And now you're shifting it from digital ministers to foreign affairs ministers, even worse. Right? And I'm saying this because I was training yesterday. How many? 280? 280 of our foreign diplomats yesterday online when I was here. And this came up. And this is Kenyan diplomats. So think about other diplomats who are there. So it's something that I'm very much alive to now, just in terms of that capacity to engage, even the fluency. And maybe, Chair, if I'm not wrong, and this is potentially where, not just the capacity building, but also tools, right? So tools, guides. So if we can think broadly around bringing a part of an ecosystem that was never part of this group. Also remember that a lot of the folks who've always been engaging on IGF are Geneva-based, right? So they're not even capital-based. And in most cases, if we're going to invite, it won't be Geneva. That I'll tell you for sure. It'll be heads of state from Africa. It'll be ministers of foreign affairs. It'll be capital-based folks. So maybe potentially, I think, Jordan, it'll be interesting for us to learn from what you've done from ICANN and all of these folks around, even tools that can be prepared early enough so that folks can engage now. Simple guides, even around the IGF. Remember, this was negotiated in New York. Not many capital folks are in, they probably will think IGF is just another conference. I'm being honest, right? So how do we frame it in a way that there are tools, but then there are those moments and spaces where we can build a capacity? That's one. Two, also, how do we leverage between Geneva and New York in terms of even just, because ultimately, just the way it will work, it will be New York, most cases, leading. So also, how do we use between now in terms of a roadmap, thinking through building capacity of even the PRs in New York, because it has come up in many of my discussions, and potentially PRs in Geneva, because ultimately they're the ones who will be asked to even give notes or updates. So I think that could be a useful thing that the MAG or the ecosystem can think about. And that capacity doesn't exist in government. Believe me, it doesn't. It exists with you. And we're happy to work with you in those two spaces, whether it's in New York or in Geneva.
Thank you very much, Jordan, for a really good question and suggestion. And thank you, Co-Chair, of course. I like how you're framing it as tools. It is tools for different stakeholders. We need tools. We need the capacity that's built for us to have meaningful dialogue, meaningful conversations and discussions. So now that the queue will go to Peace, and then we'll go to Paul Blaker. So please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Co-Chair, for providing this context. So, as someone from the civil society, usually we want to engage the government, and I think it's good that we are open to that. Talking about the tools, I raised my hand because I wanted to say, first of all, that something that makes the IGF unique is our bottom-up approach. And I'm wondering what we want to do. The fact that we are going to have the Global Forum in December, and we still have regional IGF and national IGF still being planned, and they're still in process. I know that there's already discussions to have a dialogue for the ministers and the government. For the Africa IGF, are we thinking about the same for the other regional IGFs? And it would be good if we supported the national IGFs in also trying to bring the government and have this kind of dialogue. Might not be so big, and we all agree that this year might not be perfect, right? But we are starting to move towards that. So I am saying and recommending that we should try to engage and support the national and regional IGFs in having this engagement at that level. Thank you.
Thank you, Peace. I could not agree more. Again, I'm putting on a more personal kind of spin on this because I've been very engaged in the NRIs, and we always, at least for my home region, it's very difficult to be able to get government representation or participation in these meetings. And it's actually a very good kind of sandbox and learning space, capacity building space for government representation and representatives to understand what the IGF space actually looks like. Now, please go ahead.
So in another process, what we did, and potentially if you can, I don't know who coordinates the national IGFs or who has that roadmap or the calendar of where they're going to happen. What we've done previously is we've actually, when Kenya was hosting an event like this, we've actually sent our ambassador to speak to that government. And the ambassador normally also is present in that event. So if you can use that kind of best practice that we've done before, because sometimes government listens to governments better. So we are happy to facilitate that. I know Ghana is the next one, the last time I had for Africa. Mm-hmm. So that is easy for us to do that. We have an ambassador there. So the better we know this, the better we can use our diplomatic channels so that we ensure that at least in the opening, our ambassador is there. And normally when our ambassador goes there, most cases will be a high level somebody from the counterpart government. So please use that mechanism.
Chair, let me just give you information. So the East Africa IGF is happening soon in Burundi. I think Winnie is on the call. Yeah, so that's very close. Uganda IGF, Cliff, when is it? And the Uganda IGF is planning to engage members of parliament as well. So I think if they're supported, the government would come in. So good opportunities around. And I think Anya knows more about the other stages.
We can give you the calendar of events of the national and regional initiatives, and then you can choose which ones that you can. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm going to let us know how the queue will go. We'll go first to Paul Blaker, then we will go to Meni, Nima, Olaf, and then I'll backtrack to Jorge and then Winnie. So Paul, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and hello everyone. I'm Paul Blaker from the UK government, and I was going to suggest that the title of this item should really be the Government and Stakeholder Dialogue. The General Assembly decided that all stakeholders should participate in this dialogue, and it's important we don't give an impression it's only for governments to talk among themselves. So we need more inclusive, more representative opportunities for governments to have meaningful engagement with stakeholders. I think that means finding ways to have more interaction, so not just speeches, but real interaction between government leaders and leaders from other stakeholder groups, maybe a more structured discussion, more specific and focused subjects on the agenda. Governments sometimes need more time to prepare, so we should take that into account and take into account that not all governments are full of technical experts. We need to make sure the agenda addresses the issues particularly facing developing countries. And I think using regional and national IGFs is a really great idea. Finally, I was going to say, I agree it's important that the MAG should take a lead here and give advice and support to the host country to make sure that the IGF as a whole is addressing this proposal from UNGA. I'm sure there will be lessons to learn from the first time we try this. I also like the idea of trying out different tools, and afterwards we should review the experience. And I hope that we'll keep gradually improving year on year as we get more experience of what works best. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. There's a lot of nodding around the room and vigorous nodding from co-chair as well. So I think very well heard and very well noted as well. Next, we'll go to Many. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just to support what was said by the UK government, really, we think that it's a very important opportunity to have at this year's IGF, the space for meaningful engagement between government and then stakeholders. The MAC could play a very useful role in being, for example, in charge of the invitee list and make sure that the appropriate level of stakeholders matches the one of governments into those conversations. And picking up on what was raised earlier on the opportunity for some capacity building sessions between governments, there is nothing really wrong with governments wanting to talk to each other. I think what we should really be careful about and keep in mind is that we should not treat those discussions in a different way. We should make sure that the outcomes of the discussions are part of the IGF and are not treated differently. Governments are also stakeholders, and they're coming to these conversations at an equal level as all participants of the IGF. So I will also be curious to hear from the ambassador if perhaps you have any views or ideas on what the discussions, government to government discussions, are there any outcomes foreseen out of that? And just building on what I was saying, that we should not treat that in a different way than the rest of the stakeholder conversations. And I'll stop here. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, and again, the idea, remember, is, and I think the UK government has framed it very well. One is that, remember, there is a capacity gap. And I think for me, that's the issue, is how do you create those spaces where governments can actually engage within the context of capacity? I think that's one. Two, there could be conversations that are government to government. And right now, for example, I can tell you, I give you an example. There's, for example, the issue, for example, around sovereignty, right? Governments can engage on that conversation around sovereignty, but still engage with the multi-stakeholder group around sovereignty. But it just means that the dimension is different. Because that's something, for example, that has been coming up very much in the last couple of days. And the point for me is that it doesn't mean that it will diminish the IGF for governments to speak about sovereignty within their context. And so I think for me, that's how we are seeing it. There's some very specific topics that I'm seeing that are really government to government. The second one, for example, we are hosting next year responsible AI in the military domain, right? Parts of that are government. Some of that will engage the multi-stakeholder, because there's a dimension of that we see is very much non-state actors. So we are happy to share those dimensions, and of course, with your advice, we can see how to navigate that. Yes.
Just quick one. I think the issue of sovereignty is very important, specifically, but I would like you to extend it a little bit by saying sovereignty within the context of digital era or digital sovereignty.
We're coming back to the theme again.
No, I'm just,
no, I get it. I totally understand.
We'll come to that.
I totally understand.
No, but yes. I really, really appreciate the fact that you are mentioning that the lack of capacity of the government with regard to the matters related to IG.
Yeah.
It's indisputable, and really, that's why I'm suggesting them to be educated from the community, IG community. or trained or incapacitated. Because for many years, they have been isolated from this dialogue and processes, and these people have acquired a lot of knowledge and principle that could be really passed on, and then will be formed really, because this issue of sovereignty specifically is multi-stakeholder, it's everybody. Well, it's very interesting. I will not hold, the discussion, but it's really a very, very exciting debate. But I hope we will be there talking about something substantial. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mokhtar. And now we'll follow the queue. This is how we will go. I know we have a lot of hands up from both MAG members and also past host countries who will give us their wisdom as well. I will first call on Nima, then we'll go to Jorge, then I'll go to Olaf, then I'll go to Tuan, then I'll go to Philip, and then I'll come back to Winnie. So Nima, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. And I would like to fully support Co-Chair, His Excellency Ambassador Thigo's proposal, and drawing from my experience also as being a member of the ICANN Government Advisory Committee, I think I see the value in having a two-step approach. And that is first having a government-to-government dialogue that will exchange views, but also build common understanding, as well as build in the capacity building for government officials. Because having been in government and having served in parliament and chairing the African Parliamentary Network on Internet Governance, I know firsthand the capacity gaps and the importance of making sure we bring government officials up to speed in order to have that meaningful discussion. And then second, as part of that government dialogue, there can be a government dialogue with the different IGF stakeholder groups, including the NRI, civil society, youth, parliamentarians, private sector, technical community, and the like. And then finally, I believe that the MAG should play a key role in convening these dialogues and strengthening the collaboration and implementation of that. Thank you very much, Chair, for the opportunity to contribute.
Thank you very much, Nima. I recognize we have a long queue. I just drew the line under the queue. After Barak, we will get through all of this. This is a very important agenda item, I understand, and we can go a little bit over time. Jorge, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I hope you hear me okay. Do you?
Yes, we can hear you.
I see thumbs up. So happy to be here with you. I'm Jorge Cancio, co-director of international relations in the Swiss Federal Office of Communications. We led for Switzerland the negotiations at WSIS Plus 20. I very closely worked together with Ambassador Locale on reaching the compromise package on the WSIS Plus 20 outcome document. And we have to remember that paragraph 101 was part of the overall package of the consensus, of the compromise that made the consensus outcome possible. And it's a very deeply negotiated text. So it's extremely important that we take every bit of that paragraph very seriously and in its context. I would like to remind that really the goal of the paragraph is to broaden participation from governments and stakeholders from developing countries and underrepresented communities by establishing a dialogue amongst governments with the participation of stakeholders. So it's really important to take into account all these elements. And we agree that with what Paul Blaker said about framing this as a dialogue of governments or amongst governments with stakeholders, as is said in the paragraph of the outcome document. And I really appreciate the intervention of Ambassador Thigo. We had a very good collaboration, as I said, with his colleague, Ambassador Ekitela Locale in New York during the negotiations. And we would be very happy to help Switzerland in this capacity building in the road to Nairobi, both in Geneva with the perm reps and all the other staff, and also in New York, together with good experts that we have been bringing to these venues for explaining the WIS+20 process when we were negotiating it, and also now that we are implementing it. And of course, with my hat on of the Freedom Online Coalition that Kenya is also a member of, we would be very happy to help and put also at your disposal the means we have. So to end this intervention, I think it's very important that that dialogue is really interactive, open, inclusive, and linked to the IGF program, and strikes the right balance of this element of amongst governments with participation of stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jorge. And I see also very vigorous nodding around the room, especially from our co-chairs. So very well heard, very well noted as well. I will now come to Olaf. You have the floor. Please go ahead.
Thank you. At the risk of running the risk of that everything has been said, but not yet by everybody, we had a consultation with our community, the Internet Society had, and a lot of the points that I've heard today came back. Our community really wants to have this as a dialogue with governments. I think it's important to recognize that governments can be agenda setting and create relevance for the IGF. If the IGF produces outputs that are not relevant for policymakers, then probably we're doing our job wrong. But you can only get that out in a dialogue. And if we take the parliamentary track as an example, we've seen that that has been a fairly close track with little interactions, and we shouldn't be there. I think that this is a very important moment in time to actually show that this becomes a dialogue. So c'est la tonne qui fait la musique in French. Ton. C'est le ton. Le ton. Okay, sorry. My French is not my first nor my third language. But I think we have a moment here, and I think it's very important that we create that dialogue, and that when we look back at the Kenyan IGF, that an example has been set on how to do this.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And maybe we are coming at this from bad experiences. So although some of us, I also have some PTSD. I used to be in civil society. I think if we can agree on a design session, let's have a design session. And in that design session, let's see what has worked well, what has not worked, so that we frame this in the way that this needs to work. And I'll say this openly because it is the critique we have for the global AI dialogue as Kenya, right? Because the one thing we do not want is an endless plenary, because that's also a risk you may end up, right? It can be open, but it can be endless plenary, which means in 1 hour, we've finished the time as governments, right? And there's no real dialogue. So I think my sense is that the innovation will be how do we design it in a way that then it's also for posterity. So as a host country, we are happy to engage in that process.
Thank you, Olaf. Thank you, co-chair. I will not try to speak in French at all. I will sound incredibly silly. I will now go to Tuan. Tuan, please go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thank you so much. So my name is Tuan. I'm representing the Norwegian government, the host country for last year. So I would like to share our experience as a host country from the IGF last year. We were pleased to see that it attracted one of the highest numbers of government ministers and representatives from the Global South, including the President of Mauritius and the Minister of ICT from Nigeria. We made a strong effort to ensure meaningful government participation last year by, among other things, supported with accommodation for the high-level government representative, and for those representing from the Global South also received travel support. Our experience showed that the most effective approach was to involve them in open, inclusive discussions alongside a diverse range of stakeholders, such as the high-level sessions. In our preparation and follow-up of the invitation we sent with high-level governmental representatives, we were specifically asked about the opportunities they can engage with the wider community on stage and on their side. The feedback we received was that the government representatives experienced that the existing structure of the forum does enable governments to engage with one another. However, the main challenge was not the format, but the timing. Ministers, ambassadors, and other high-level officials tended to...
Sasa kupigie watu wa tickets.
I'm sorry.
Please mute your mic if you're not speaking. Tuan, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So, minister, ambassadors, and other high-level officials tended to attend the IGF at different times, and due to their limited availability, they prioritized engaging with the wider community. They share that this is the reason, actually, that they go and attend the IGF, because the IGF remains one of the few places where such broad interaction is easily accessible to them. So I think that format of having an open conversation with government, I think it really worked well for us, and I hope that it will continue.
Thank you very much, Tuan. Thank you for sharing the experience of Norway last year as well. I will now go to Philip, another one of our past host countries. Philip, please go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the floor. As introduced, my name is Philip. I'm speaking on behalf of the German government, and also as a former host country representative to the MAC. First, I would like to congratulate Kenya for hosting the IGF in 2026. I'm sorry that I can't be with you in Nairobi today, but I'm very much looking forward to being with you in Nairobi in December. I also welcome and appreciate the clarification provided by Deza and also by Tiago, that the dialogue will be steered and planned by the MAC. And I'm also very happy that Deza and the host country can provide support in inviting government participation to the IGF. However, I also would like to reiterate some of the concerns and also some of the, give a proposal. I would like to recall the broader context of this very paragraph, since this paragraph is about working modalities and engagement. And I think here's really a role for the MAC, but also for the Secretariat to work on working modalities, to improve working modalities and engagement so that government better understand what the IGF is and how they can engage. And my concern is that introducing a new feature to the IGF would confuse governments more, since we already have the main sessions, we have the high-level track, we have the day zero events, and now we have the dialogue. So it's really important to explain good to governments where they can engage, where participation makes more sense for them, and how this dialogue, which should be really dialogue with stakeholders, is framed. I'm looking forward to the discussion, and as Germany, we are looking forward for the IGF in 2026 in Nairobi, and we are happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Thank you also for sharing thoughts as a past host and also a very active negotiator during the past year on the WSIS Plus 20 review. This is how the queue will go. I will first go to Barak, then I'll go to Winnie, and I believe Octavia has a hand up for a different item. So Barak, the floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Co-Chair, for setting the ball rolling. I just wanted to add a few comments to the comments that have already been made by colleagues. Number one, I think the discomfort around government stems from understanding the principles of the IGF. I may not like what you're saying, but I have to respect your right to say it. And sometimes that's really how it goes. But having said that, governments have always played an important role and will continue playing an important role in the IGF. I think the most successful IGFs I've seen, the government has always been at the forefront. And I think it's all the IGFs. The government have always been at the forefront. Looking at participation in the Kenyan IGF from the first one to 2008, 19 years later, I don't think there has been any meaningful success without government. So just to give the reassurance. And lastly, there exists a number of mechanisms for supporting building the capacity of government, those coming through the government ecosystem. We've been using the regional economic communities. The East African community or the East African Secretariat has been convening government stakeholders and providing a platform for them to be trained. In West Africa, I think it's also happening under ECOWAS, if I'm not wrong, which has really grown into something very big. And I mentioned earlier the work that the Africa Union Commission under the Policy and Regulatory Initiative for Digital Africa also did. And even Diplo Foundation, Diplo picks diplomats, government officials and takes them to Geneva for an immersion program. Normally takes 2 weeks. I happen to have been a beneficiary of such a program just to help them understand the IGF. And actually, the Mauritius IGF came out of a similar program. It's called CD Multi, to the extent that last year they actually brought their president to the IGF. So I would say that we can take advantage of these existing mechanisms and I think goodwill to make sure that we prepare delegates from the governments to be able to participate meaningfully in the IGF process. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Barak. I saw a lot of nodding, of course, from our co-chair as well. Now I will go to Winnie. Winnie, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Co-Chair. I hope you can hear me. And very good, warm afternoon. Sorry, I won't be having my video on right now. But I would like to pick up on the conversation my senior has just made about the mechanisms that are already there for the internet governance. And I know Balozi already knows this from even his participation in the Kenya IGF, where we know that it comes from Kenya IGF, goes to the East African, and this time, as mentioned yesterday, and Peace mentioned today, that we'll be hosting it in Burundi. And the East African community lead, who is Dr. Izit Murenze, who is leading the government, is also there. And we are hoping we'll have a School of Internet Governance where the communities or the government also will be involved. And we hope Balozi and Dr. P.S. Korir will also be able to attend the Burundi event, which will really be great, which will really help us formulate and the roadmap to Accra for the African IGF. And as mentioned by our senior also, I don't know if this is possible with the MUG, you can put this in place, like a School of Internet Governance crash program for the governments. That would really help for them to understand the workings of the IGF and to see the roadmaps of where we're going and some of the challenges that we're going through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Winnie, for highlighting again. I think it's just a way of mentioning capacity building and tools, and I guess schools of internet governance do that, but perhaps not formalized in that way. But we certainly will make sure that the materials, the information gets passed on, so the capacity can be built that way. I'm checking in with Olaf to see if it's a legacy hand that you have up in the Zoom room. Okay. So I believe we have Octavia hand up on a different agenda item before we go for the break. So Octavia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I missed the opportunity before, but thank you very much for great conversations. I wanted to get back to the policy networks, and I wanted to suggest a slight change in the name of the policy network for cybersecurity. With some of the best practice forums and a lot of the work that has come through in the past years, and with the report that also came through in November last year on securing access in times of crisis and conflict, I wanted to make a suggestion for a name change, and I'd like to put that to the MAG of changing the name of the, as it stands now, it's cybersecurity, and I think I'm open to several options, and some of the wording that has come up has to do with, of course, security, resilience, cyber resilience, etc. And since we've had comments on some wording being political, I'd like to say that, in my personal opinion, it's difficult not to be political in times like these, and I think it's important that the MAG considers that as well. However, on a personal level, militarized language is exclusionary to a large extent. And so I wanted to suggest that we instead call it the Policy Network on Security and Resilience. I think it encompasses some of the best practice forum conversations as well. And I think that in having that name change, we're allowing for the broader framing that I think is important for this, and it allows us to core what the policy network will be, addressing or mainly addressing. So I wanted to put that forth, that we change it from cybersecurity to security and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Octavia. I think that the agenda item previously, we've drawn a line under that, and the next steps we will look at. The Secretariat will send out more information for those who put their hand up for co-facilitation, and also organize the multi-stakeholder, I guess, kind of group that will flesh it out. So again, I don't thank you for saying this, but I think the work there is probably going to be the next step. I see another hand, Karina, but if this is still on this topic, I think it's probably better that we take that forward and we give ourselves a break. I'm going to preview this by saying, let's start again at the top of the hour. We do have a very tight agenda that will end our day. We'll come back to talking about the overarching theme, which is very exciting. And then we'll have a presentation from the Secretariat regarding the call for session proposals, the village booth, and the remote hubs. So be prepared to start again at the top of the hour, 11 minutes break for those who are joining us online. Thank you very much. Encouraging the MAG members to start taking your seats and we'll resume. All right. Thank you very much, MAG members, returning from a very good photo outside and also stretching your legs and coming back in here. We are on the last agenda item for today. We'll start with a very brief, I guess, well, it's not quite a presentation, but a show of what the call for session proposals will look like. Also the village booth and remote hub proposals. And then we will very naturally segue into continuing the discussion of a very exciting overarching theme. So with that, I'll pass the floor over to Eleonora.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I'm just waiting for this to come up on the screen. Okay, perfect. So this is really just for the MAG's reference. This is the call for session proposals that we made last year. And coming to this point in the agenda, the idea is that we would like for the MAG to agree that we will make the same kind of call this year based on the discussion that we had. So I'm just going to scroll down and show the session types that you also saw in the program architecture visual that we were all looking at earlier. So we'll be calling for workshops, for open forums, for launches and awards, lightning talks, networking sessions, NRI sessions, and day zero sessions. So this is just to touch base with the MAG. Based on the discussion that we had, it sounds like we will keep the session types for now, and then we will make an effort to improve the user experience of the program when we design it. That is to really put the sessions of substance forward and sessions like networking sessions, launches and awards that are, not quite necessarily related to the themes of the meeting as more sort of social events. So it's clear to people what the core sessions in the program are, and there isn't confusion because there are so many session typologies. But we would call for these sessions so that we're not excluding people who like to organize different types of things under the IGF umbrella. We have a lot of organizations like ITU, for instance, that comes to the IGF every year and holds an awards ceremony during the meeting. And we still want to be able to give those organizations a space. So by keeping all the session types in the call, we make sure that we're drawing in everyone who we want to draw in, who wants to come, and who come to the IGF with different types of events that they'd like to organize. And we don't want to exclude any of those people or to limit the program in that way. And then when we present the program, we'll make sure that the sessions appear focused in terms of their substance. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you very much, Eleonora. I think it does make sense to me, but I already see there is a hand up, and I'll go to Olaf. Please go ahead.
Makes perfect sense for me. Thank you. Primacy of substance, I really like that. But I would also call for fairness in advertisement so that it is clear to the session proposers of, say, a network session that has, I would know, I don't know how to say it exactly, but would have a different position in the program so that people also know what they get in advance and don't spend a lot of time in writing a proposal and then find themselves at the back seat, for lack of a better word.
If I can respond immediately, that's an excellent point, and it'll also it's also very good input for the kind of form that people will fill out. Thank you, Olaf.
Thank you, Olaf, and thank you, Eleonora. I see a hand from Adam Peake. Adam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm commenting as usual as someone who's been involved with a number of MAGs and participated in the processes that you now face. I was struck by the number of proposals received for BPFs and policy networks. 62, that's about 55, 54 more than I remember from any past year. And I wondered if that suggests more interest, and what will the MAG face with the proposals coming in, particularly for workshops? How would you evaluate, for example, 900, 1400 proposals? I think it would be worth bearing that in mind, because I frankly don't understand where 62, the level of interest is enormous, and it's very good to see, but would be quite frightening for you in a couple of months' time when you come to evaluate them. And another thing, and this is something we discussed in previous MAGs, is as the MAG shapes the whole agenda now, what picture do you have in mind? What are you looking at when you think about those 4 or 5 days in Nairobi? And I think it's important that the different session types are very clearly described, which I don't think they are at the moment. So workshops and the other sessions, there are criteria. What does, for example, diversity mean to the MAG, and how will it evaluate diversity? So there's gender and stakeholder, regional, points of view, because we're talking about dialogue and discussion. So I would try to publish some kind of document to accompany the proposal for sessions that explains to people considering putting in a proposal what you're anticipating. What does good look like to you? I also wonder if there should be something that the MAG says about the overarching themes and what you're anticipating in that direction, but that might be going too far. So how are the other sessions different from workshops? I do remember seeing sessions coming in under a different heading that to me looked very much like a workshop under another name. So what are the criteria for each, and how do you differentiate them? So what is a networking session, and why would someone apply for a networking session rather than a workshop or something else? And really, I just hope that more clarity you can give will make the application process easier, and the amount of work that you're facing, sorry to say that again, will actually become easier as a result. So the evaluation of more proposals submitted with more clarity to your design would be helpful. So thank you. And I will go back to lurking in the background. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Your advice and your comments are always very, very much welcome, at least to me. Yes, it's a big issue, and we do think that we are going to have more workshop proposals than in previous years, especially since there was another conference that was cancelled, and I think we may be going to absorb some of those workshop proposals as well. I mean, I don't know, but that's one of the things. So that is something that we're thinking about, and we're looking at various ways how we can manage that. And one of them, of course, is we are going to experiment on to see if we can use AI to mark some of them. And but for this year, we were thinking of a parallel process because I've got very little trust or full trust in going, jumping feet first into AI as such. So we're going to look at it. Maybe we do a small sample first and then compare with the human marking, etc. The other thing about clear instructions, it's always good to have clear instructions, but then if the clear instructions amount to an encyclopedia, then it's of no use as well. So the way that we actually do the questions is also very, very important. And also the differences should be very, very clear. That's why we actually had that conversation about the session types, that the difference should be apparent, that a networking session is something that happens outside of hours. It doesn't have the support of the YouTube or the streaming or etc. Things like that. Of course, do we have all the answers? No, but we have a lot of questions, and that's one way to start, is have the right questions, and as we move along, try and answer them.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Chengetai, for the explanation. Just to add some more context, again, of course, Adam, your experience is always very beneficial to share with the current MAG. One thing I wanted to pick up on that you mentioned regarding the proposals for the PNs, I think this is the first time we're innovating and taking in the community proposals, and that's part of how this MAG is trying to innovate. So I think previously, it was only just proposals directly from MAG. That's why you only saw a few of them. But thank you, Chengetai. Of course, we're trying to pioneer and test out many things, but we also need to be very careful that we're not over-relying on tools that are not 100% trustworthy at this very moment. I will now come to the queue, and we'll go to Rajendra, please.
Thank you, Chair. Over the last couple of years, with the experience of submitting proposals, so it's a fairly rigorous process of when people submit. And it's also a big achievement if it gets accepted. But the gap between two is the guidance. I know if you put FAQs, it will get into thousands of questions. Would it be proper to put maybe some of the anonymously accepted proposals for each of the group for people to look at it if we don't do it? Now, like if there's a lightning talk, so here is a proposal, just anonymized that was put, last year. I mean, those were accepted so that people get a guidance of not, putting their time going, redoing it and not getting accepted for just missing something important. I mean, would that help? And also a comparison. I think we understand the difference between all. So maybe a short description about what each entails. Like there is a 60-minute roundtable, there is a 90-minute town hall, and a classroom style thing. So just putting the difference would be quite helpful for some people to understand and saying, okay, I shouldn't go for it. It's not going to work. So even, we visualize what a 90-minute roundtable looks like, what a classroom style looks like. But for some people, it may just be like out of place to put something, then like, oh, I think we outdid what we needed to do and it was not relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for the session descriptions, we do have something like that on the website, and we've had it for quite a long time about the session descriptions. For I think it is a good idea to have what we would call well, not a template, but an example of what a good ideal submission is that would which hits all the spots, the diversity, the different types of diversity, etc. Again, if we get, like Adam said, if we get 900 sessions and we only have room for 150, it's still, it's not about the quality now, it's about the fit to the theme. So that's also, but I'm not saying we shouldn't do that because of that, but we should do that. I think we should have an example and also point it.
It will also help you if you're going to use AI, because you will have to anyway feed that into a model for the AI to map it and give you the current year. So I think anyway, as a part of the process, it is good for us to have a repository of accepted proposal over the at least last 3 years, if not more, and then use that as a template for AI to train and do that. That will make it closer to what human reality could be actually.
We will be doing something similar to that, not quite that, because it's a good proposal 4 years ago is not the same as a good proposal today. But yes, we'll be doing something similar to that. And again, as I said, we have a 2-page proposal form and 120-page instruction manual. So we're going to try our best and see how it goes. Yeah.
Thank you, Rajendra. Thank you, Chengatai, for the explanation and context. I think those also in the chat remind us that all of the proposals, or I guess the workshop sessions, are actually all archived online. I think it's not a difficult task for us to kind of point people to that. I think not only for the community members who are thinking about writing proposals, it's also very useful for MAG members, because they're first-year MAG members and returning MAG members who also need a little bit of a refresher, reminding ourselves, these are the criteria we need to look for when we're marking these proposals, etc. Right? I think it's always useful for us to have that guideline, but of course, I will look forward to seeing how we innovate with that. I now see a hand up from Amrita. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry for asking to speak. I just wanted to point that while we all, the proposals for even last year are there on the IGF website. People could be pointed to the selected sessions. And also, if the MAG is willing to organize a session on how to submit proposals, because year on year, we see some standard people always making submissions, but there are new people who may not know how to make a structured proposal. So perhaps one of that session, if it is held, and later on it can be circulated widely so that people can look at it and understand what is it the MAG looks at while evaluating and selecting sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Amrita. That's a very practical and very useful suggestion, especially for those who, really want to know what kind of criteria they need to hit. What is it that, makes a good proposal? What is possible? I see now a hand from Lito. I think he'll elucidate us on that experience, especially since he has a lot of experience with the working group on process. Lito, please go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to touch on that because I have 3 years working in the process working group and looking at the form, looking at the evaluation criteria, and looking at all these elements. We, in fact, did once a webinar on how to present a proposal and recommendations on things that the MAG wanted to see. We spoke about that in the webinar. I did it, and a few of us. So, of course, we can do that, but I will go further. And also, maybe we can prepare a webinar on how to evaluate, or not discuss, but go through the evaluation criteria. We're not changing them. I understand that. We're not changing the form or the evaluation criteria or the process at all in this year because of the time constraints. If we would do that, I mean, the open date for the proposal would be much later. So I understand that and I agree. So we can go in a quick track for not only for proponents, for possible proponents, but also for MAG members that will do the evaluation. And I will add a comment here just to warn everybody. In the past, not all MAG members have completed 100% of their reviews. So let's hope for this MAG we can do it. It's a hard work. I remember a year we had to evaluate each one of us more than 100 proposals, and we have to go detail by detail and fill out the evaluation form for each proposal. So it's a lot of work. So, and it's, I think even though we end doing what we can with what we have, it is, of course, it's always better if every MAG member completes 100% of their evaluation assignments. So that's another thing, of course, but I just wanted to alert everyone that in the period that we define for doing the personal or particular evaluation, we need to devote some time to this task. But we can, going back to the practical things or proposal, yes, we can prepare some webinars, both for the proponents and for the MAG, especially the new MAG members that maybe I know everybody has done some type of evaluation at some point in their lives, but maybe we can go in a quick webinar through this. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Lito, for sharing your experience and really good suggestion, both from Marita and yourself about the webinar. I just briefly conferred with the Secretariat, very happy to support this webinar. It will actually be a very good package as we put out the call for proposals, and we also announced that there'll be a webinar that explains very clearly the criteria. It'll be beneficial for proponents and also MAG members, refreshing our memories, on our understanding and our baseline of how we're going to look at this criteria, how we're going to score. So I think it's beneficial for all of us. And cheekily, I'm going to find out what the percentage of MAG members who have scored all the proposals from the year before, and that's a goal for this MAG to beat. So a little bit of competition from previous MAGs. Let's try to beat that percentage. I think that would be a little bit of incentive. Hopefully we get bragging rights to be better than the 2025 GOAT MAG. 2026 can do better. So I look forward to that. I see a hand up from Olaf.
In some environments that I know of, you have to disclose the use of AI and the prompts that you've used when, submitting a paper or doing something. Is that something that we want to consider for the proposals that we get in, that proposers at least disclose the use of AI and give an overview of prompts that they used in creating the proposal?
The question should be for the MAG to answer. My feeling is that it's going to be 100% of people are going to be using AI in some form or fashion. There's nothing wrong with using AI as such to help the process along, but as long as you're not 100% dependent on that AI. But yes, it's a question for the MAG to answer. I mean, it's definitely.
Yeah.
Mm.
Thank you, Olaf, for the question. I guess this is an open question for the MAG. I see already a hand from Rajendra. Please go ahead.
So, Chair, normally when I go to international conferences, I don't ask how many of you use AI. How many of you don't use AI? And trust me, it is typically one hand out of 2,000 or two. So I think what Chengetai sir is saying is a reality that we are all, if not dependent, for sure looking at leveraging AI in whatever way possible. And so I think to me, it appears to be an obvious that there's no point asking. Everyone is going to look at using that. If the proposal is not original, I'm sure it will not get accepted. We are going to use AI also, So for me, it's like, it's okay.
Thank you very much, Rajendra. I see a hand from Sophia. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just want to support what Olaf said. I think it would be very transparent and nice to have this button of like, yes, no, I use generative AI, just for transparency purposes. And yeah, to be very clear that, yeah, I use it or not. I wouldn't say that it's like out of like 1,000 people who might reject the use, because especially in civil society, there are people who are more critical when it comes to the use of generative AI. So I can only support what you said.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think it's more a question, not a question of yes or no, but to what extent. So perhaps a little bit open-ended, what type of prompt, and if people use AI to make their thing more readable, good for us.
Thank you, Olaf. I am a chair that likes action. So because we do need to make a decision on finalizing the call for session proposals by tomorrow. So I'm hearing perhaps a voluntary action from you, Olaf, to kind of frame that question that will add to that particular form, and for the MAG members to take a look at that question, consider it, and add. Is that?
Yeah, but there's two things here. Did you use AI? Yes or no? I think that's basic. Everybody should be able to answer that. The other one that you were proposing is, can you give us your prompts? I think that's a more complicated question, and whether or not we should ask that, I think that we should make a decision on.
We may see a drop in proposals if we do that, because a lot of people use that, and very difficult for people to say that we're going to put all prompts. That's going to be one thing. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so my I guess action here again still stands. I think perhaps, Olaf, if you are able to articulate that and circulate it to the MAG so we can all take a look at it before we have to make that decision. I think adding it to the form is not going to be, technically difficult. I think it's possible, but we do need to take a look at it and decide as MAG, because we do need to also offer the call for proposals finalization very, very soon for the community. I now see two hands. I will first go to Vinicius, and then I'll come back to Amrita. Vinicius, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very brief comment. I think it's a very fair point, actually, if we just look to the overall context that we have nowadays. So it's fair to think of it for the next process, thinking of the evolutions and so on. So I think it's a good point raised by Olaf, and it's probably just a very simple approach, like Chengetai was saying. Maybe a mixed approach between what Olaf was proposing and what Henriette just posted on the chat, trying to understand how people are using this in producing the proposals. We also have to remember that this is a pilot, right? Because this is the first time we will ask something like this. So I think it's better to have something very simple this time, so that we can understand better the process, understand better the constraints and the elements, so that we can evolve for the next time. But this time, I think it's better to keep it simple, so that we can have a good grasp of the whole process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vinicius. Very practical considerations. And yes, we definitely don't want to scare away any proposers, but we need to be very clear here, and we can, of course, iterate and improve as we go along. Now I'll come to Amrita, and after Amrita, I'll come to Peace. Amrita, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair. What APR IGF did this year in their call for workshop is they stated that, have you used AI? Yes or no? And what was mentioned was AI tools may be used to assist with language, grammar, or clarity of expression, but the use of AI to develop the substantive content of the application is highly discouraged. So, language may be an issue, putting thoughts may be an issue, so using AI is welcome. So this is what we are trying this year. I don't know how well this will go, but that's the whole thought. I thought I'd share it with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amrita. Thank you also for sharing the practice that's been done at the Asia Pacific Regional IGF. Very useful for us to take a look at and learn. I also note that there's very good chat interventions in the chat from Olga as well. Apparently, we really need to take a look at what does this information let the MAG know? How do we look at it from a substantive point of view? How does this affect how we score these proposals? So now I'll go to Peace. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I wanted to support the idea of asking if people used AI for them to declare. I think it's good for transparency. We also use it at AfriSIC, and people say, yes, we've used it, and how have you used it? I think it's a good practice. But what I wanted to come on earlier was to check if the Secretariat has statistics for newcomers, that if the number of newcomers that applied for workshops increased, and also the youth, for instance, because we did a lot of work trying to educate and share, best practice, how to put up a winning proposal. So it would be good to know if there were changes. And I support that we do this kind of webinars again, so that people can know and ask questions. Yeah, it's good to really have newcomers joining. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peace. Thank you for that as well. Especially, I guess there's also always questions from first-time proponents, always questions from youth delegates, youth community as well. I think we want to highly encourage those who really would like very much to participate and to propose things, to not be scared away from all of the processes. I now see a flag from Saba. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Saba for the record MAG member. I want to echo what Peace has said, and especially what Peace and Lito have said. The webinar has been done over the past 2 years under the working group used in collaboration with the IGF Secretariat, with MAG members, especially with the co-facilitator of the working group on strategy. So it should really continue this year as well, and then the coming years as well. I do have a comment actually on the workshop sessions as well as a question. One challenge that we have observed over the last years is participation, and this is particularly for the session that takes place around the end of the IGF, the annual meeting, which is around day 4. And these sessions, they often experience lower attendance despite being the topic very, very important. I'm wondering how, whether as MAG, we could actually consider strategies in order to improve and encourage stronger participation from the community. So the question is, how can we actually ensure that these sessions, and especially those sessions that are held around the end of the annual meeting, gain same level of visibility as at the first of the meeting? And this is, I'm fully aware of the capacity building session that is also organized by the IGF Secretariat. Looking forward to your thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Saba, for very good suggestions here. I'm looking also to the rest of the MAG members to react on this as well. I think it's really important that we give it due consideration. One thing that I'd like to also bring up, and I'm seeing very active and lively chat about this, and I think this is something that, as we're wrapping this particular agenda item while we go to the overarching theme, I want MAG members to also remember we are a global community. English is not everybody's first language. English certainly is not my first language. My mother tongue is Chinese. So I think in the ways that we look at how everybody uses these tools, in the way that we see how, what this information can actually give to us, why are we collecting this, why do we want to know this, and give due consideration on how we look at the criteria, how the community understands the criteria, and how we then look at what we do with this information. So again, a lot of well, not a lot, but sufficient homework for us to really think about. I think Secretariat will be circulating again. If you haven't already read it again. The session proposals, because the form, the call for session proposals, we need to finalize it by the end of the day tomorrow. I know that Olaf and perhaps others have also agreed or maybe were voluntold to suggest that particular question for us to think about. So to add to that form, we had very good suggestions from Amrita and also, of course, from Lito that we have the webinar that will give light, shed light, and educate the community on the criteria we're looking at. And of course, to remind the MAG members ourselves on how we score as well. So I now see a hand from Karina. Is this on the same topic? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Karina Virarda, MAG member for the records. Regarding AI, I agree with all everybody say. We are the human in the loop, and we have to modulate, but we retain the accountability of the final result. And secondly, I'd be happy to act as a focal point for a new MAG member who have many questions in the selection about the MAG processes or activity as informal way, but just for one person. That's my voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karina, for that. Definitely we'll take that into account and input. With that, and I'll do a 6 count as our past chair, Lynn Sadamore, likes to do. And we'll move on to the exciting discussion, continuation of the discussion of our overarching theme. I'm looking towards Secretary to see do we have anything that we want to share on screen just to remind ourselves
Of the comments.
yeah. Of the suggested overarching theme and the discussion, so we kind of remind our minds of where we left off yesterday with that discussion.
There were some suggested alternate titles, so I'll put them up.
Okay, and as our secretariat put that on the screen for us, we have a natural segue into thinking about our overarching theme, because this is very important. If we're doing a call for proposals, the community needs to know what our overarching theme is before they suggest anything, of course. And we had a very good presentation from our co-chair about the very good suggestions from Kenya. And as soon as we get that up on the screen, of course, we can already open up the queue for MAG members, community members to continue this discussion. Okay, now we see it. So a reminder for all of us, the original overarching theme formulation is governing the future of intelligence. There has been suggestions for alternative formulations, and they are as follows in the order it appears on the screen: shaping the future of intelligence, the future of intelligence, digital intelligence, governing the future of the internet, and there's alternative terminology, governance instead of governing. So let's revisit the good discussion we had yesterday about these. Please go ahead, Mokhtar.
Okay. Yes, it's my suggestion. Governing the future, no, governing the digital future, sorry. Governing the digital future we want, from commitments to implementation.
Just as our speedy typer is typing, thank you very much, Eleonora. Is that going to be a full-on sentence there, or is it like truncated into the headline and then a tagline?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Okay.
Here's just my thinking with this. It's about governing the future indeed, because this is which feature? Digital feature, of course. But since we have moved from over commitment on the GDC and the WCS 20 and become something more permanent, and we are inclined for implementation, I thought that also should be reflected. This is not perfect. However, it just give directions.
Thank you very much. Mokhtar, I see a hand from Jordan. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. At the risk of adding yet more to the set of possibilities, I liked the intelligence thing in the original suggestion, but I didn't think it was in the scope of the IGF to govern intelligence per se, no matter what version of intelligence that was. So the alternative I was thinking about was the internet's future in the age of intelligence, because it's sort of like the IGF is about shaping the future of the internet and its impact. We're obviously in the age of AI, but we don't quite want to say AI in the theme. So the internet's future in the age of intelligence seemed to sort of locate the theme in the work of the IGF, but keep that quite innovative nod, not just saying AI. And everyone's drowned by AI. When I see AI on a conference topic, I stop looking at it, but that could be a possibility.
Question, do we want to keep the word internet and not say digital? Because there's been this debate about internet versus digital.
Thank you, Jordan, for the suggestion. Thank you, Chengetai, for the question that we should think about. I want to, before I go to Zhang Xiao, I want to highlight something that Vinicius put in chat that I think is very important to say. His chat message is, I think it would be wise to avoid repeating many terms we already used in previous editions, and I agree with that. Okay, now to Zhang Xiao, please go ahead.
I strongly suggest something like shaping. How about shaping our digital future or shaping the digital future? Because I think for the governing, it's something like control, but for IGF, also we have the responsibility to develop, especially for the developing countries, we need AI to help us to develop. So both developing and governing could be two sides, so we could use a shape to emphasize that we do not just governing, but also help. So how about shaping our digital future or something? Okay.
Thank you very much, Zhang Xiao. I think the Secretariat right now is actually pulling up the overarching themes that we've had previously.
Like shaping our digital future.
I think we might have had
17, shape your digital future. So
that-
that's basically the same, except for the ING.
I see. If we can either share the link to this or maybe I don't want to move away from the screen because this is what we're looking at.
Yeah,
So let's
just put it in the chat.
we can share in the chat of the previous editions of all the IGFs and all the I guess overarching themes. So again, we shouldn't duplicate the ones that we've used previously. Okay. With that, I will now go to Lito. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I like 6 and 7, and I will propose to have shaping the internet's future in the age of intelligence. So mixing the 6 and 7, taking into account all the comments about governing. I mean, governing and things we have listened to. So shaping the internet's future in the age of intelligence. Because I agree that intelligence is AI is a key technology now, but it's all based in internet. So
Thank you very much, Lito. I'm just double checking. The hand is still up. Zhang Xiao, is that a legacy hand or a new one? Okay, thank you. Sure. Now we have on the screen 8 alternative formulations. We've had MAG members try to suggest some merging of some of the language that we already see there. I see in most of the formulations, the MAG members have been very happy to support the word intelligence in there. I've also heard a lot of MAG members have also indicated the focus also on the internet. And I remind us all of Chengetai's question about internet versus digital. Let's give it a really good think. I'm looking over to the Secretariat to see how we would like to move forward with this. I know we do have to have a decision. I mean, of course, looking at the time as well, we have 15 minutes before the end of today. And if we're not able to kind of wrap our heads around, if we need one more night to have a good think about this, that is perfectly fine because tomorrow's agenda is pretty flexible. We do have some time. We have set a shorter day, and let's be very efficient again with how we go through of this. But I do encourage all of us to give it a really good think because we need to give a guiding, overarching theme when we issue the call for proposals because this kind of sets the tone and sets the direction of this year's IGF, and it's very important that we do that. I see a hand up now from Rajendra. Please go ahead.
I think, Chair, this is a very important issue and we shouldn't try to do it in 15 minutes. Maybe start tomorrow at 9 a.m. Give people to think. Okay, maybe 9:15, 9:30. So if we do at 9:30, then we should keep time.
What we can do is we can end later because we're ending early.
Okay. Yeah, because this requires a serious thought. And I think our brains work subconsciously. Now it will start acting. Tomorrow you will see everyone have good ideas. I have no, I mean, I would say the theme is really good, what we have, and we have good options. But let's mull over it after a good dinner tonight and drinks.
I mean, feel free to discuss on the MAG mailing list as well. I mean, we don't have to be face to face. And then when we come back tomorrow, at least, I mean, one option is let's try and narrow that list down. We have 8. Let's see if we can have, 4 or 3 and then wordsmith. But let's also let's not leave out the original title. Let's put it in that list as well so that we don't forget that original title. And we also have to make sure that our host country is on board. Okay.
Thanks so much. Sorry, I'll take the floor, and tomorrow I have other commitments by the boss. I think also understand that we've had a lot of thinking around this, and we can live with many things, but I think just for also you to think about the reality of the global south, especially in the 3 words of governing, shaping, and governance. The reality is there. They may sound nice, but there are realities behind those words. We know for sure we don't shape the future. We don't shape it, especially in the era of intelligence where we don't, the models are concentrated between a few countries and a few companies. So we had thought around this. Governance, we've been excluded from it. It's already formed. Governing is an act. It's still ongoing. And so when we were thinking about this, we thought the most provocative thing would be, what if we start to steer, decide, and hold that line in real time? Because technology is changing and shifting as we speak. So that's why for us, governing was important, not governance, because in our way, that system is already formed. And we're always calling for reforming of everything right now from where my president is. And shaping the realities that assumes influence, and setting the directionality of that. We may not even today be agreeing on the directionality of wherever this technology is going. So we had thought about this. I think I just want to call out that word. Everything else, I think we can live with because I see a lot of the things are there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair, for the context. I'm double checking to see whose flag is coming up. Okay. Mokhtar, please go ahead.
Very short. I 100% support what has been said by the co-chair about the governing, shaping, and so on. The governing for the global south is extremely vital. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mokhtar. I see a hand from a community member, Osita. You have distinction of having the last word for today. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to briefly mention that we can put it on a poll for tomorrow to make it easier, so we don't comment on put our opinion on the comment section, then while doing that, we can also add for others, for people to maybe add one or two opinions that they consider very relevant, which might not be included. So, but putting it on a poll tomorrow might make things easier while we think about it today. Thank you.
Rough consensus.
Thank you very much, Osita, for the suggestion. But again, I'm reminded, and I'm reminding the MAG as well, we don't vote. We do it by rough consensus. We really discourage voting because it becomes quite contentious if we do it that way. Now I'll attempt to try to wrap up what we discussed today. Of course, the more comprehensive version, we will, of course, depend on our secretariat to compile tonight to see where we have areas of consensus, and then we pick it up tomorrow. So today we took a good recap of the open consultations. We took in a lot of the input from the community. We came to decisions. I love decisions on the outcomes of the virtual MAG meetings, including the MAG-approved policy networks. I thank all of the MAG members who have raised their hands and be bold with volunteering to co-facilitate. We also agreed to reconstitute the MAG working group on strategy with specific subgroups and task forces. We also agreed to reconstitute the MAG working group on youth. Thank you again to Saba and others who have indicated support and work for that. We heard from the DCs, the NRIs, the youth track, all the updates, and had very good discussion around how we can integrate further the very good work that all of these pieces of intersessional activities are doing, and closer to the work that the MAG is doing, how we can make a very coherent IGF agenda. We had an introduction to the building blocks of the agenda. We had a very good discussion on how the MAG would be able to help with the coherence, of course, leaning on the expertise and the responsibility of the IGF Secretariat to be able to create this for us. This is an unenviable task every year. So thank you again in advance and always for helping us do this. We talked about the government dialogue with stakeholders at IGF 2026. Very good discussion there. Thank you for all the inputs from MAG members, from community members, from past host countries as well, giving us the wisdom and also experience. And thank you, of course, to our co-chair, Kenya, being bold. And this is an innovation that is coming out of the WSIS Plus 20 outcomes. And I think, setting the tone at the very first edition is very important here. Vigorous nodding over here. And of course, we ended with a good discussion on what we need to do about the session proposals. Very good discussion again here on the overarching theme. There is homework for tonight. I would ask the Secretariat to circulate this list to the public MAG mailing list. Please take a look at it. Have a good dinner. Come back with fresh brains. And please do also circulate any suggestions there on the MAG mailing list. I know that Olaf has also sent a formulation of the questions that he is proposing for the form on the Zoom chat, but I also hope that you have already circulated. Perfect. Have I missed anything? I'm looking towards our secretariat team. Of course, our party planner is saying gala. Please go ahead.
No, we're supposed to have a dinner tonight at the Carnivore Restaurant at 6. And I was under the impression that there were going to be some tickets provided. I'm looking at.
I have asked, I think we just need to show up.
Oh, we just need to show up. Okay.
I asked for a ticket and I was just told to show up.
So we should show up at Carnivore Restaurant today at
6 p.m. it starts.
6 p.m.
So we need to run.
Well, no, I mean, this is Africa, so.
So I hope that if you have any questions about logistics for tonight, MAG members feel free to ask the Secretariat, and of course, Barack as well. I'd like to thank, of course, the remote participants who've been with us the entire day. Thank you to those who woke up very early in the Americas. Thank you again to those in Asia Pacific who stayed up very late. And thank you for your engagement. We're looking forward to a good day tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye-bye.